This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, Ms. Berlin, and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Yo.
Hi, everybody.
All right, excellent. I actually didn't check the audio levels before we started, so I was afraid you guys were not going to come through, but you're looking good.
Want me to talk louder?
No, you're all right. You're good.
All
right. Yeah, no, it's good. So, for those of you who were listening the last couple, 3-4 weeks, the audio got kind of out of order. We were talking about me being on vacation with Mick Douglas, and in fact, I was actually here. So last week's with B-Side Seattle, I was, actually back. So that was great. Had a great time in Hawaii. And
we were all very jealous
of you. What I heard.
No, it was really nice. It was like the mid-70s, and it was really windy though. So hanging out at the beach, the water was a lot warmer than the pool at our condo. We did an Airbnb, and unfortunately, the apartment that we stayed in this place called Island Colony was about as big as my office is, and that my office.
Wow!
Oh gods, I'm telling you, it was uber tiny. But for the most part, we didn't stay in the apartment, so it didn't make sense to have a big old apartment that you were going to stay in. So it was nice. It was cozy. You go in, you take a shower, you sleep. And then you get up and you go do stuff. So we saw Kilauea. Yeah. It was nice. It was good times. So, and on top of that, I found out Hawaii has an InfoSec convention called Shaka Khan, which is in July.
I want to go so bad.
I know. I found out about it after I got back. They were like, "Oh yeah, Shaka Khan's there," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And it was at the Prince. I walked right by it. The hotel is right next to the marina that if you watch Gilligan's Island, the start of it, the minnow sails out of that marina. So nice. It's like really, really close to that. It's really good. So yeah, if you don't have a con you want to go to, July, Hawaii, fantastic place. So definitely.
Maybe I'll do that for my birthday.
There you go. Don't take the kids though, because
hell no.
Yeah. Gotta get down there.
I can't afford that. Are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, you're flying from what? Ohio. So.
Ohio to Hawaii with a 5, an 8, and a 15-year-old? No, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
I'll start saving up for 2022.
You're right.
Well, Hawaii's not going anywhere, so yeah, start saving up.
That we know of.
Yeah. But Shaka Khan's doing, they're doing CFP real soon, I'd imagine. So if you ever submitted the talk, they might subsidize some of the airfare. So, yeah. But, July in Hawaii, that'd be fantastic. It was right next to, they call it Magic Island, I think. There's all kinds of parasailing and stuff going on. We went parasailing. That was the first time I'd ever done that, and that was interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect, so yeah, it was
How long were you up there?
The being up in the air, we were 600 feet up, or was about 225 meters, and we were only up there for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then they put us down. So they didn't dunk us because we didn't want to get dunked apparently. So they were able to capture us right on the boat again. So
wow, that's impressive.
We left the boat and we landed on the boat. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So what did you guys do while I was enjoying Hawaii?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, well. Mr. Betcher, how about you?
Just working.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any new malware?
Always. Yeah, there's new stuff coming out all the time. No. I mean, it's generally rehashing of the different techniques.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
There's occasionally one that you're like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of campaigns going on. People are talking about them in the Twitters.
Yeah.
They're links that you download a Word doc with a macro. There's also encrypted Word docs. A lot of attacks for Microsoft Office products right now going on. Not necessarily the PDFs or the flashes, are not as big a deal for corporations anymore. It's just the phishing emails that you got to watch out for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard there was a fairly decent sized company got hit with one of the money transfer fishes the other day. Lost $30 million that they couldn't get back. Yeah.
Wow.
By the time they realized that it had happened, the money was already gone. So I don't know if that's going to make the news, but that was.
I feel like anything that has any box or any person that has the capability of accessing that much money should not be able to get email to that box.
Well, yeah, that's it's like,
or you get 2 websites you're allowed to go to: your bank transfer site.
It's just poor processes. That can be processed away. A CEO shouldn't be able to go, yes, hello, please, I am the happy CEO. Pleased to be sending 30 millions of the dollars to, my Swiss bank account.
Ridiculous.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Man, boss, you got some really bad, grammar, but I'll send it anyway. Okay, that's cool.
Right.
So as long as I'm in line for that promotion, I'm good.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no joke. I'm thinking that's probably something that definitely needs to have at least a 2-person process there to go, okay, well, $30 million, that's a little bit of money, boss. So yeah.
Ugh.
That's a bad lesson to have to learn, I think. Yeah. So speaking of bad lessons, we recorded this on March 3rd. Something really bad happened this week. I got back from vacation quickly enough to get a hold of this. So was anybody, raise your hand out there in listener land if you were hit by the S3 outage that Amazon had?
Me.
Whoa, a lot of people.
Really? Yeah. The
Twitter was still up. That's all that matters.
That's true, but I couldn't upload pics.
Giphy was down.
Yeah, I couldn't upload pics to Slack or anything because a lot of their stuff, it just sat there and timed out, so I couldn't send pithy memes and dank memes and stuff to all of my peeps on the Slack channel.
That's the important stuff.
I was paralyzed. I couldn't get anything. So yeah.
How else do you communicate?
Yeah, exactly. So, the S3 outage, of course, was caused by nation state level,
APTs.
Malwares and stuff. Oh, no, wait. It was caused by somebody fat fingering in something wrong. Oh. So, yeah, we had found out because we do a little bit of business in AWS, and we had talked to the outage people, and they said an authorized S3 member using an established playbook executed a command which was intended to remove a small number of servers from the S3 system used by the S3 billing process. Unfortunately, one of the inputs to the command was entered incorrectly. So somebody put in an argument with a wildcard, for instance, and just blew everything up.
RM-RF.
I want to shut down N servers.
Gods, yeah.
Yes.
And that's not the first time. I did that when I was a sysadmin once. We had a KVM where it was like you could switch 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could input the same command on all 4 things. And I accidentally switched all 4, so I shut down like the firewall, a couple of web servers, and our domain controller at the same time.
Nice.
Well, I was just some nobody at the time, but
I think we all have one of those stories.
Yeah.
At least one. Like I deleted a default route at an office that was 3 hours away from me.
Oops.
On their firewall.
Oops.
And not just once, I did that twice.
What, you mean after you learned your lesson, you just went ahead and did it again?
I still did it. It was an accident though. Some firewalls, when you do something, it automatically saves the changes. Instead of making you save it, it just boom, you're done.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the things that was funny at my work, they were like, well, you think that guy got fired or whatever? I can't imagine that people get fired for something that was accidentally done. I mean, yeah, they could get something put in their permanent record, but I can't imagine that, they would knowingly.
Yeah. People say that a lot. He should be fired. That's unconscionable. Yeah. I doubt that happens. I mean,
I could see some companies doing that though.
Well, yeah. I mean, and if it did, I don't think we'll ever find out if the guy did it because 1, would he want people to know that he actually did it or she did it, and 2, I mean, he might want to, say, yeah, I got canned at Amazon because I did that, but he or she'd only be shooting himself in the foot in the long run. I think
an honest mistake.
Yeah, it happens. let's hope he's learned it or she's learned a valuable lesson. So
yeah, it's not like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire where they say, "Is it your final command?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's my final command. All right.
Yeah.
And even if I'm sure we've all done that too. You read through something a million times and you don't catch the problem until it runs.
Yeah. Well, I would hope they've updated the playbook so that it doesn't allow for things like, wild cards, or at least starts asking the question, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Remember what happened
to this amount, this amount of servers.
This is one of those Darmok moments,
Yeah.
S3 member at Amazon, March 3rd. That kind of thing. So,
yep.
Yeah. For you Star Trek fans, you know what I'm talking about there. So,
okay. So what does this mean? Like, break? You said that a lot of people were impacted. All right. Yeah. So, I've had conversations with people that say, well, it's the cloud. It's secure. Mm-hmm. It's, stable, and we don't have to worry about DR.
Yeah.
It's always up.
Yep.
Yada, yada. Well, I guess that isn't largely the case. Well, at least anymore.
Well,
right?
we talked a little bit about that in our Slack channel about, incident response exercises that make sense. A lot of people are loath to, consider their cloud provider, as something that could go down because it's so catastrophic. You can't, it's hard to believe. I watched World War Z the other day on the way home from Hawaii because I was in Hawaii. And you get to the point when I hope I'm not giving away any spoilers because if you haven't seen it by now, tough. But
it's like 5 years old.
Yeah,
so.
Brad Pitt flies to Jerusalem because he's trying to find the patient zero, or the guy who actually knew that this was actually going to happen because Jerusalem had walled off the city before the virus got to them. And he said what had happened was the intelligence community in the Israeli area, or Mossad in this case, came up with this idea that if 9 people came up with the exact same answer, the 10th man, or the 10th man in the group, was supposed to start over from scratch as if that was not the answer and come up with a whole different scenario. And the guy that Brad Pitt was sent to find was the 10th man, who figured out that it wasn't in fact some kind of weird illness, but it was actually, he took it on the whole fact that it was actually a zombie outbreak, like in the horror movies or whatever. And, they developed the defenses based on the fact that it was the zombies. So, a lot of companies out there need to have that kind of mentality. It's like, okay, 85% of our stuff is in, Google or Azure or AWS, EC2 instances. What happens if we lose those? And, there might be people snickering going, oh yeah, in dreamland, this will happen. But, Amazon has been hit by this before. And last October, the Mirai botnet took down Den, which of course took down some of the Amazon services that affected a lot of the internet, including Twitter. I think Twitter was down during that one, but it didn't seem to affect them with the S3 this time. But
right,
you need to, when you're doing IR exercises, you need to have like the mother of all problems happening, because then you can prepare for those kinds of things when they actually do occur, I think.
But what I don't get is some people plan for earthquakes and tornadoes ripping places apart, but that you're not going to plan for Amazon going down.
Yeah, well, it would take an act of God, because the idea is that they're supposed
just somebody's fingers
built-in. They're supposed to have built-in redundancy, multiple data centers, and you've got hundreds of boxes geolocated in one area. I mean, even Netflix uses Amazon for redundancy, and it just makes you wonder. They seem impregnable, they seem impenetrable, they seem 100 constantly up, and it's a big giant complex machine that doesn't apparently take much to bring down in some cases. There's chinks in
And
everybody's armor.
there's a lot of people that always say, when something in the cloud happens, whether it's security or uptime or whatever, they're like, oh, well, this is why we keep everything local, or this is why we should have it on our own hardware.
Yeah.
But you cannot beat their uptime.
No, you can't. Not for, depending on
if you're running your own stuff, you're not going to have the horsepower and the redundancy. And I mean, even if they do go down twice, in 10 years, that's still going to be way worse than if you ran your own boxes.
And if you've got any kind of number of assets, you're going to be employing some kind of data center of some kind. So you're either going to be running in a private cloud, which is a data center,
right,
or you're going to be running on one of any cloud hosting providers like Azure, Google Compute, or AWS, or the big three is what I consider. HP, I think, has one as well, but it's not nearly as well known.
So is that what they're calling data centers now? Private clouds?
Yeah.
I think
That's
so.
cool.
I think it's better marketing term wise,
Yeah. We have a
build your own private
people.
cloud.
Yeah. And they offer, we've had cloud providers on before that do private cloud stuff. Our Firehose talk that we gave a little while ago was talking about private clouds and using those. They offer very similar amounts of uptime, but you're getting a more personalized experience. But
well, I went to visit a data center once, and there were sprinklers on the roof. Right. So I was like, oh no, this can't be good. So when I went inside, sure enough, it was pretty warm in there.
Yeah.
It was the middle of summer. The air conditioners weren't working as they should have. I guess they were getting old and they needed to be replaced. But, if you're putting all your eggs in the same basket, that's a risk.
Sure.
So private cloud or not, those things do go down.
Yep.
We used to have one of those giant barn fans in the one row in our data center.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the 52-inch.
I've seen data centers where it's divided into two parts, and one part's cool, the other part's hot because that side of the data center, that unit went down.
Well,
ours was just poorly designed. There was no hot cold aisle. It was one hot aisle that everything flew into.
Yeah. Well, as long as you can keep it below 85 degrees, you're probably okay. So,
right.
Yeah. So let's say you're doing an IR tabletop, and your scenario is, we've got stuff in Amazon East 1 or Amazon East. They don't have East 1. US West 1 and 2 are what Amazon has over here on the West Coast, but they have US East. So we've got stuff in US East, and it goes down. After your infrastructure team or whoever handles your cloud stuff stops snickering because, that stuff will never happen, then you can actually start getting to the meat of the problem. What would actually happen if they went down? And, for some companies, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just move everything over to, West 1 or West 2 or whatever. How easy is that?
Yeah.
You could have several hundred instances or several dozen instances or what have you. It's not easy to push that stuff over, and you incur costs by doing so. So when you're doing incident response, not only do you have to think about stuff like that from an Amazon or a cloud perspective, you also have to think about what happens if I want to move something over to a different, environment, or let's say you have it in US East, or you have it in a specific enclave in Amazon or Google or Azure because of compliance reasons. Let's say it's GovCloud, for instance, for Microsoft. You can't exactly move stuff from one Gov cloud to another because it's expensive. One, for data transfer, because every megabyte is so many dollars. So you have to budget for actual incident response, and that's going to cost money. That's got to come from somewhere. And at what point do you go, well, once we move it over there, why would we bother moving it back? Because by the time we get everything set up over here and doing, because most incident response plans have, return time back to operations, you're looking at SLA downtimes if you move it in one direction, and then you're going to look at SLA issues, moving it back. So at what point do you go, well, okay, now we're not going to be working in US East. We may be in a different place altogether.
Yeah, but a lot of times those are maybe they're not as good on performance,
sure.
or they can't. Or a lot of places, if you go through that IR procedure and you do move your things, you're only moving critical applications as opposed to everything.
Sure. And yeah, and that brings up the idea of the cold, warm, and hot sites.
Right?
Do you want to have a cold site somewhere so that you can bring it up in, say, 12 hours? Or do you actually run hot sites where it's like, if it goes down, it doesn't matter. We'll just continue working over here. All that incurs money from an operational standpoint, but also from an IR standpoint. Because you're looking at all kinds of.
You can't just flip a switch.
For some, you don't want to run two hot sites like that because transferring data back and forth across, continents or,
right.
Coasts is going to cost a lot of money, and it's sometimes not worth the hassle. So
it's a business decision, and that's why these conversations need to be had.
That's right.
They need to be had because, well, here's the benefits, here's the disadvantages, the increased costs.
Yep.
However, if there's a 2% chance that this will happen in the next 6 months, then and there's a history of that we've seen,
sure.
Then maybe that 2% adds up to this much loss per month in potential revenue. It might be worth it to have a hot site up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, or at least something for your bare bones operation. So, yeah.
Do you think a lot of people do those calculations?
No.
Well,
no, I don't think they do, because
I've never encountered anybody that's done the calculation of, all right, well, how much money is it going to cost if I do this versus this?
Yeah.
Most people assume that they're an expert in whatever, and so they can't imagine this happening, and they say, well, if it does, we're probably looking at this. They don't actually sit down and break down the numbers.
Yeah.
They assume that they know what they're talking about, and we all know that we believe that we're smarter than we actually are. Yep. I mean, that's what keeps us from crying punch down in a corner.
Well, that's why you probably should include some of your bean counters, your financial people in the IR exercise. Because if you go, well, we'll just move all of our instances from, or all of our Google Compute instances from Pacific Northwest down to the Florida stuff, and they're like, that's like $100,000. I don't think we're going to do that.
Right.
The amount of cost that we're going to lose from, busting our SLAs this month is only going to be $20,000. So let's just bust the SLA and pay the SLAs out instead of trying to move everything to Florida. And in that case, that you're gaming the system there, but I'd rather take the penalty there instead of moving everything to Florida and then deciding, well, do we need to move it back to Washington because, well, we're going through FedRAMP and we were already trying to, do our stuff with FedRAMP and there, and we're already spending $500,000 for that. So, there's a lot of stuff to look at in terms of, moving and doing failover or doing backups and those, for that kind of stuff, especially in the cloud, or, even if you're using a private cloud. If you don't have a hot site to begin with, you really don't want to be trying to find another provider in the middle of a crisis. Because one, I'm sure they're going to know that you're in the middle of a crisis and they'll jack up your price. And two, there's a lot of things to go and look at before you were actually, moving things over. So, I mean, it's good to have your options already on the table. And that's why you should do a lot of compliance requirements do require you to do IR tabletops, at least on a yearly basis, if not more. Especially if major architectural changes have occurred or, that kind of thing. So it's always, I think it's always good to have that out there scenario. You can have ones like, for insider threat or what happens if Bob does this or whatever. And then it's like, well, what happens if Superstorm Sandy hits our data center in, US West? What happens if a blizzard knocks out Seattle? What happens then? Ha, that's never going to happen. Well, you know what? Seattle's gotten more snow this year than Chicago did, and we're not exactly known for our snow here, at least in the Seattle area. So, every time it snows big here, 40, 50,000 people are without power. So how hard would it be for a data center to go down from lack of power? Or, there's been no power for 3 days and the generator doesn't get filled back up or wasn't filled back up the last time it was tested. Now you don't have anything going on. That's just my point. It's one of those things. I'll take your silence as ascension of my point.
Yes, we agree with you.
Excellent. Well, does anybody have anything else to discuss with that before we move on to our next topic that we thought of? Mr. Betcher?
No.
Cool. All right. Well, comments, questions, suggestions. We'll have contact information if you want to, discuss that more later on. So, let's see. Okay. So I found this on Twitter. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but I appreciate them for doing so. They know who they probably are, maybe.
But no one else does.
Yeah. So,
sorry, anonymous person.
Thank you, person of interest that is interesting. So this came from a website called theoutline.com, and the title of the article is "Programmers are confessing their coding sins to protest a broken job interview process." So they're saying,
I wondered where this came from.
What's that?
I wondered where the whole Twitter thing came from when people started doing that.
Yeah. I didn't know what the meme thing was either, but that's where. So if you saw something on Twitter, it was like, "My name is Brian, and I don't understand why puppies do what they do," or whatever. This started out with a tweet from a guy said, "Hello, my name is David. I would fail to write bubble sort on a whiteboard. I look code up on the internet all the time. I don't do riddles." So that became kind of a semi-meme online. They hate the idea of the whiteboard interview. They said it discriminates against people who are underrepresented in the field. I'm sure you two have read this, and Mr. Betcher, he's now a dirty developer himself, so I thought he might be able to weigh in on some of this.
Okay, well, I've been on both sides of the whiteboard programming interview questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think it's valuable for a number of reasons. If you're the interviewer, you want to see the interviewee demonstrate that they have the cognitive ability to be able to explain how to solve the particular problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the complaint is, I don't know the syntax of this, that, and the other. That doesn't matter to an interviewer, or it shouldn't. If it does, they're idiots. It shouldn't matter because most of us can't remember detailed syntax for anything. Like,
sure.
Does anyone listening actually know how to convert ASCII characters to wide strings? Right? You just don't. There's a difference, right? One's probably 2 bytes and the other one's 4 bytes or 6 bytes, whatever. But the conversion itself, there's a function call for that, right? But I don't remember the exact parameters. You look that stuff up. You just Google it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
the idea is that there is a conversion that could happen, right? Yeah. And the particular syntax is meaningless. Now, you're up there to solve a particular problem, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea to the people asking the question is, do they know how to work the problem through in their head?
Sure.
What happens when they get flustered? Because the questions are very hard. They're extremely hard.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with trying to solve a problem that's very difficult?
Yep.
Do you freeze? I've seen people they sit there for 5 minutes and say nothing. They ask no questions.
Yeah.
And right? Or they don't say, well, I would Google this part. And then as the interviewer, I would say, well, oh, okay. If you Google it, then you'd probably find out that it's this particular method. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I'll do that. You mentioned bubble sort, I guess, was the whole start of the situation. Mm-hmm. Well, as an interviewer, I would say, well, a bubble sort does this particular algorithm, and you kind of explain it in words.
Yeah.
And then the person would hopefully go, oh, okay, yeah, I either remember that or that makes sense. Let me write the program this way. And
But at least so you know they're in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not demonstrating if they can take that code word for word, type it in, and then hit go. And if it doesn't compile, then they fail.
Mm-hmm.
No, you want them to work through a problem and see if it makes sense to you as the person asking the question, how they're working through the problem.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the question. If you sit there and say, well, this is stupid, I give up, then maybe you're going to say this is stupid, I give up on a project that's really desperate for the company to solve in, the next 15 days. Otherwise it's going to lose $1 million.
Yeah. Okay, so the problem was that there were several tweets that went out, including this one from this lady. She said, "Hello, my name's Erica. If I told you what things I still have to Google, you would use it as evidence that I'm not a real engineer." Evidence was in quotes, and real it was in quotes as well. So they're trying to say that by the whiteboard thing is, one, they're saying it's intimidating and it causes a lot of stress. Now, I am of the opinion that interviews cause stress regardless, and any way to reduce stress is fine. But I can understand Mr. Betcher's point that the idea of the whiteboard interview is not to see what you know, but to see how you handle, the not
Tough
knowing
questions.
or the questions. Yeah, if this is a conflict that you're dealing with. This is a battle that you're having to fight, and how you fight that battle, especially when time comes and you actually got the job and something really happens. How do you handle the stress of doing so? I mean, we've heard the legendary Google interviews that, and I've gone through a loop at Microsoft as well, where, sat in a room for 8 hours, 5 different interviews with, 6 different people, finally getting to the hiring manager, only to find out I wasn't going to get in, but that's cool. I'm not bitter. People at Microsoft.
At all.
No. Anyway, so, it's stressful, but it's stressful for a reason. And I think it's okay. And, there are people that will interview, a prospective, person at the company, and there may be some personality issues there where, he feels threatened because there's another developer coming in, or, there might be some personality conflicts, and that's just on the company making sure that the right people are interviewing people. Your top performers aren't necessarily the ones who need to be doing the interviewing, but also the people at the very bottom of your pool of resources shouldn't. It should be a nice mix. There should be people who I don't know if they do personality profiles at bigger companies, but if what is that, the INTJ stuff and all that,
right.
You need to have a nice mix of personalities when doing interviews. Maybe a good cop, bad cop kind of thing, where somebody's going to hammer on the person and the other ones will be like, but yeah, I mean, it should be stressful. It should try to help you bring out the real person, because we go in, we're putting on airs anyway because we want to impress and that kind of thing. The interview process, especially the whiteboard, is supposed to see how you're going to react to those kinds of things.
Yeah. And I take it the person didn't react well, and obviously they didn't get the job. Otherwise they wouldn't have put it all up on Twitter.
Yeah.
And probably good for that company, because, hey, I used to know how a B tree worked, but I have to confess I don't now. Mm-hmm. However, I know how to Google it.
Yeah.
I know how to ask questions.
Yep.
And I know how to write programmatically particular algorithms. Now, it can be pseudocode or whatever. It doesn't have to be in a particular language, as long as the algorithm actually would work. Mm-hmm. Had you sat down and coded it. We had an interview once where we had a guy write us how he would code a family tree class. Mm. Okay, so he would do all the relationships, father, daughter, siblings, uncle, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then once he did that, we were pretty impressed with that. And then we threw him a curveball. Okay, well, how about get grunkle? That's a grandfather uncle, right? So he had to think, well, what the hell's a grunkle? And then how do these relationships that I built work in such a way that I could write this method?
Yeah.
Okay. So he worked it out in his head, and well, he did a great job, and he ended up winning the job because he didn't sit there and go, you guys are idiots, or I don't know how to do this, or things like that. And that's why, and I read this book, The Failure of Risk Management. And in one of the examples in the book was a question that would come to risk managers or actuaries and things like that to test them. And it was, for example, how many piano tuners are there in the city of Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows that, but in order to figure out the answer, you'd have to ask yourself certain questions like, okay, well, how many people own pianos? Because obviously there needs to be a market for piano tuners. So you say, maybe 1 out of 20 households might own a piano or something like that, and you just work it out in your head and you just keep going. Right. And all of a sudden you come up with a range with a certain level of accuracy.
Yeah. Okay. So in the show notes, I'm going to put another link. The link in the outline went to a blog post on interviewing.io. They're saying that the technical interview is like discriminatory in many cases. You can't fix diversity in tech without fixing the technical interview. And the point that they're trying to hit on is, after drawing on data from thousands of technical interviews, it's become clear to us that technical interviewing is a process whose results are non-deterministic and often arbitrary. We believe that technical interviewing is a broken process for everyone, but that the flaws within the system hit underrepresented groups the hardest because they haven't had the chance to internalize just how much of technical interviewing is just a numbers game. Getting a few interview invites here and there through increased diversity initiatives isn't enough. I don't quite understand that. Is what
I'm confused. I'm confused as if they're trying to fix the interview itself or fix diversity issues.
I don't know if they're trying to fix. It sounds like that they're trying to fix the technical interview to allow for more diversity because they believe that minorities and the ladies don't get enough interviews, so they're not comfortable with the technical interview.
They should get comfortable with it.
Because the ladies only get like 3, where 25-year-old white dudes out of college are getting 15 to 20. So the 15 to 20 interview guy is going to be more comfortable with the technical interview than the 25-year-old lady who's right out of college who only gets like 3 or 4, or the African American gentleman who gets like 2 or 3. I think that's the point they're trying to make.
So here's my answer. I have a book here called Programming Interviews Exposed: Secrets to Landing Your Next Job.
Oh, cool.
All you got to do is buy a book on how to do technical interviews and study that. And I guarantee you'll do better.
Yeah.
Right. Than you did before.
Right?
It's hard work.
Can you put a link to the name of that book too in the?
Yes, please.
I mean, it's hard work to be able to prepare for an interview. If you don't do any preparation, right? If you don't practice on your own, you're not going to do well. It's like anything else.
Yeah.
I never prep for anything.
Yeah, I used to agonize. I actually still do. If I ever do,
I'll have an anxiety attack if I prep.
Yeah.
So I just wing it.
Well, I always, when I get interviews, I usually find out the name of the people I'm interviewing with. So the first thing I do is I do some Google dorking to find out who the person is.
Yeah.
Usually I can find them on LinkedIn, and I can find out where they went to college, what they like doing in their off time, because people are stupid and they don't do OPSEC. So I can find out if they've got a Facebook profile or whatever. It goes the other way when I'm interviewing people. I always Google dork them as well. But I think the technical interview should not be the only decider of a developer or a person getting hired. Yes, technical acumen is important for many jobs, but and I've stressed this before, the soft skills are often more important than the technical acumen of the person.
Oh, for sure.
The guy may be a stellar programmer, but if he's a complete dick, do you want to work with that guy?
Depends on the thing, the position you're trying to fill.
No,
if you have a programming job that requires him to sit in the basement and not ever talk to anybody and just do this one particular thing or solve a problem, and he's going to be great at it, then sure.
I just think maybe the guy who's got 75% and is a much better, because just being a developer, there's more skills than just being a code monkey. And if a developer thinks that all he is a code monkey, he's not. One, he's selling himself short. But I guess if all you want to be is a code monkey, that's great. But you have to interact with these people on a semi-regular basis, and I think attitude is very important. And I am completely all for de-anonymizing resumes as much as possible to make sure that if there's any kind of bias there at all from any facet of age, race, sex, gender bias, anything, get rid of that as much as possible to make it as level a playing field. But
I've never even thought about that. I think that would be really cool for the HR departments to start doing that.
Well, I mean, you would have to follow some kind of guidelines to make sure that you're getting rid of pronouns that, there's other deciding factors. It's like, oh yeah, this person went to William and Mary, this person went to Harvard, or this person went to, Tuscaloosa University. I mean, you're going to get biases internally on your own thinking about these kinds of things about, Guadalajara University. I don't know if there is one. I apologize. There it is.
For making fun of it.
No.
Apologies.
That's all right, Brian. Apologies
accepted. Please send your hate mail to bds.podcast@gmail.com. But, you're going to get those kinds of biases even if you do it de-anonymized. So, it's not going to be 100%. But I think if you could, go, okay, here's a resume from somebody, this is what they know, and you decide to bring them in, I think that could probably help with a little bit of it. It's not going to solve the entire problem. But yeah, like you said, Mr. Betcher, if you're going to be interviewing, make sure that you get comfortable with yourself. I don't know if it requires you to get into a nice, the good thing I like about interviews now is they don't always require you to come in suit and tie. That always bothered me. Being comfortable, polo shirt, slacks.
Yeah, business casual.
Anybody who tells you need to come in a suit and tie, I think maybe you don't want to work there.
I think I didn't get a job because, all right, it was really hot that day.
Yeah.
In August when I was trying to get this job.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got a call. So I went in and I was in a tie.
Yeah.
But it was so freaking hot and I started sweating and I was like, and the parking lot was all full. I had to park in the back and I had to walk and so I took my tie off.
Yep.
And I'm like, these guys, they dress up in a polo shirt or whatever. They're not going to require this. And I get in there and the dude interviewing me is freaking immaculate.
Really?
Right? He looks like he just saw the president and then he went across and, I was like, oh, geez. And I didn't get the job.
Really? Wow.
I feel like they judge you on that.
It could be the little things. There were like 50 applicants and I ended up being, I think, the third.
Like I've seen people come in stained T-shirts and stuff, and
well,
not having a tie.
I have asked recruiters what uniform of the day is or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, just come in business casual. That's been in the last 5 years when I've done interviews. It's like or a lot of times if it's not a technical interview, it's like, hey, let's meet for coffee thing, and it's like, oh okay. That's cool. You know, I can show up in shorts and a t-shirt then, or whatever. You know, I don't do that because I do actually put pants on for that kind of thing.
For the job that I got, I dropped the F-bomb in the interview, and I think that was one of the deciding factors on me getting hired.
Wow. All right. That is
okay.
not
She can take a joke. We know she can take a joke. She's not going to be running to HR when somebody says something out of line.
Yeah. So the owner of our company was in my interview, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, more than what I've learned about you from Twitter."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
really? Okay. Wow. Yeah. Oh, you follow me on Twitter. Yeah. No, I completely understand. So, yeah. Okay. So the point we got from all that is, the technical interview, I don't think should be phased out completely, because I do think there is a need for showing some knowledge that you have. I still think that personality is probably about 40% of what you should hire for, because you need to ultimately have to work with those people.
What do you think about those kind of technical interviews where they allow you to Google stuff?
I don't have a problem with that, because I think as long as you can find the answer, that's important. Now, I do think that if that's all you know how to do, the problem I have is are they copying and pasting things?
That's all I know how to do.
I get all my code from server fault or Linux forums or whatever. If you don't understand the code you're actually copying and pasting, that's different. Yeah. So if you say, hey, do me a binary tree thing or whatever the hell Mr. Betcher called that, bubble sort or whatever, and you find some kind of algorithm and you're like, okay, I'll copy and paste this in. I should expect you to be able to give me, for a PHP script, if it's a web developer or something like that, a Rails guy, I need you
Maybe that's the trick.
What's that?
Right? Maybe that's the trick. It's a trap.
Yeah.
If you're going to be allowed to Google and all you do is copy and paste, but you can't explain what it is that you don't even have to know the language, but if you kind of understand what's going on, you should be able to answer questions about what you just pasted in.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because you're going to run into issues where if you're actually doing a licensed product, copying and pasting things in, and somebody finds out you plagiarize code from a website, that's going to cause some problems. That's going to be causing some legal problems, especially if that product turns around and is making billions of dollars, because that guy can say, well, my shim is actually in your code, and you're making millions of dollars off of a shim that I created, that kind of thing.
Or you just copied stir copy and now your app is vulnerable to fuzzing.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're doing a technical interview and you do allow the things like Googling and pulling code, I should expect as the interviewer to say, okay, explain to me exactly what this 10 lines do and where it will go. And, hopefully I'm smart enough to know what the hell those 10 lines are. And, if I probably wouldn't be, but,
or hey, copy something with a vulnerability and say, but you're going to have to fix this buffer overflow here in this stir copy. Then you're like, you got the job right there.
It depends on the developer you're looking for. If you're looking for a developer who actually does security stuff, then yes. But most developers aren't going to go, gee, there's vulnerabilities. So, I mean, So, I mean, it really depends. Most developers aren't looking for vulnerabilities. If you do find one like that, they'll pick him up even if he wasn't your first choice anyway. So, but yeah, so.
I think if you're a company who's hiring a technical person and you're getting rid of the technical interview, good luck.
Because I mean, if you're really getting rid of the technical interview, I'm wondering if your code's not going to start suffering in the near future if you are hiring a bunch of folks. But yeah, oh well. All right, so real quick, one last thing. You have something that you love, Miss Berlin, and you're going to do it at some place. So go ahead.
Yeah, right. So I heard about this thing called Platypus Con that happened in Australia this last September, and I really liked the idea that they went forward with.
Which
is so right from their website, it says, in the spirit of what brought this community together, we're aiming to build a super hands-on event. That is, instead of a series of talks while you plan on missing, instead of a series of talks while you plan on missing to catch up with your friends at the cafe down the road or the bar or whatever, we're putting together a full day of hands-on workshops where you can get your hands dirty, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea, and I was going to try that out at, I'm going to be speaking at AIDE in, I don't even remember when it is.
West Virginia.
Couple weeks from now. Yeah. It's in West Virginia. And I figured I'd try it out. You know, I'm not going to talk at the audience. I'm going to ask them all to bring their laptops or their phones or something like that, and we're going to do a hands-on hour of stuff instead of me just talking at them.
Cool.
So I just thought it was a neat concept.
So it says 2016. He doesn't have dates on the bottom of his email.
Hold on. Give me a second. It's in my calendar.
That's right.
There's one badge soldering workshop.
4/6 and 4/7.
Okay, so 6 April, 7 April.
And 7th.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's in West Virginia with Bill Gardner. What is it? Oncee? ONCEE?
Yep.
Yeah. Really good dude. He loves having people coming in. AIDE is actually the Appalachian Institute of Digital Evidence. So is there going to be DFIR and digital forensic stuff going on there as well? Yes, it does.
Yeah, they do. They do a lot of that stuff.
Okay. Excellent. Electronic discovery.
Forensics.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So what are you going to do?
Lots of go ahead.
What are you going to do for your hands-on thing?
So kind of like we do in the CTF club every Tuesday, we're gonna, but a little bit more learning and presentation added on top of it. So, class or the audience and me will go through step 1 and I'll explain it, and we'll go through step 2 and I'll explain that. We'll go through step 3 and I'll explain that. So they're learning as we go. If they know some of it already, that's great. If not, maybe they'll pick up a few things.
Cool. Wait a minute. What's this CTF club you were talking about, Miss
We have a CTF club every Tuesday, which is going really well. I have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We just do a Google Hangout and we go through the online CTFs and bang our heads against the desks all together at the same time.
We do that a lot, yeah. Mr. Betcher runs the CTF club. That's his. No, it's not really his thing. He hasn't shown up to it yet. The idea is we do 2 Tuesday sessions. I have actually been remiss doing the morning session. I actually do it 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is noon Eastern, and like 5 p.m. Pacific or UTC, I think. 1700 UTC. The idea is we're going through the over-the-wire war game called Natas, which is Satan backwards, I found out. Weird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jonathan actually mentioned that the other day, who's one of the people in our CTF club. So what happens is we all get together on a Google Hangout. We all start up our Kali instances. And, we go through the various steps together. Some of us are behind, like myself, I'm on 11, and there's a couple of people who have actually gone up to 15. DF in our CTF club solved 15, I think, the other day. So we come from very, different, backgrounds. Everybody seems to be really, having a lot of fun with that. And we get to collaborate and work on answers together. So that's something we can all do together. So if you're interested in doing that, by the way, you can sign up to our Slack channel, which is https://breaksec.signup.team, and you can get on there. The bot will allow you to hook up to that. That's something you can do. So, Mr. Betcher, is there anything else you'd like to talk about with the technical interview, or what do you think about the hands-on con thing? I know a lot of we have workshops that do that stuff in cons, but you're just going to do it as a talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about doing something like that for like doing a talk at, say, DerbyCon or something where you're taking an hour and walking people through a malware example?
I think it sounds great. I think there should be a mix of things like that. Maybe some people like the regular talks. Maybe some people would like more hands-on workshops.
Yeah.
As talks, right?
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of something similar. When I was in high school, I did speech and debate, competitive speech and debate. So in high school, we'd go to various other high schools and compete with other children our age for, prizes and stuff. And one of the things I used to do was called extemporaneous speaking. And what happens is you would go and you would draw a subject or a question. And you had 30 minutes to prepare a 5 to 7 minute persuasive speech on whatever it was. Like one time I got one on, do you think sports doping is too widespread? Tell why or why not, that kind of thing. I thought about doing something like that for our CSEC East meetup here in Seattle, but I could definitely see something like that at a con where you'd have like, we called it an extemporaneous draw, but if you wanted to join it, you go in, you would take a slip of paper. It might be on like Seattle PD has body cams for protection to themselves and the people they're, looking out for. But it was also found out that the body cams could be used along with facial recognition technology to verify illegal immigrants and their status. And so it comes down to which one is better, having the body cams or, having the ability for PD to actually look for possible illegal immigrants. So, that was something I was like, well, you could write a 5 to 7 minute persuasive speech on either side. You could argue both sides. So that was something I was thinking about, maybe, seeing if there was any call for that. At least I'm going to try it here at CSEC, but, maybe at like DerbyCon or something like that, if I could pull Mr. Kennedy's, whiskers and find out if that was something he would allow us to do. So, because I think that would be good. I mean, we could do it on anything. Privacy, is PCI complete bull, or, tell why or why not, those kinds of things. So, if you're interested in that, please, send us some feedback. So,
are we an industry that's very heavy on conferences as compared to other industries? Like it seems like there's conferences every week. I wonder if other types of fields have as many per capita conferences as we do. I mean, I tried Googling for the inbound call center representative conference and I can't find it. So I'm not sure. It seems like we're pretty heavy on that.
Well, I think it's we have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. We all make a lot of money. And we all have a lot of disposable income.
What?
Sure.
Wait a minute.
Well, speak for yourself, bro.
The majority.
Wait, where do you work?
You shut your face. So, I just think that I don't know how to say it any other way than that. We like to travel. We're used to traveling because we're consultants. A lot of us by nature.
Some of us just miss people.
Some of it, yeah. I mean, we're introverts.
That's why we go to conferences.
Yeah. So I think that there's IT conferences, there's developer conferences, maybe not to the same degree as InfoSec conferences. Maybe we're like the Linux of the technical world. Oh, well, we can do better over here. Let's create our own convention here. That kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe that's an extemporaneous speech that we could do. Are there too many InfoSec conferences, and what can we do about that?
So when I helped put together a conference, that was the talk a lot, is the fact that there's too many of them.
Yeah. I think there's probably a lot more in the U.S. Than there are overseas, perhaps. Because I can only think of a handful that are over in like Europe, for instance. Australia's got RuxCon, PlatypusCon,
KiwiCon.
KiwiCon, that's right, KiwiCon.
Well, that's in New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean that area, that kind of thing. So, and I think with the B-sides, the B-sides movement has really ramped up the idea of the local con You know, you're probably within 100 to 200 miles of a con at some point in the year wherever you live. You know, unless you live in like Montana or something. But even then, you've got like B-sides Seattle, B-sides Boise, Salt Lake City, B-sides. I mean, you've got cons in the area if you didn't want to travel a far, far piece. So,
B-sides Helena, there's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, not hating on it. I mean,
not in January though.
Yeah. Well, they have Shmoo in January, so that's in DC.
Yeah,
that runs hot or cold. Either it's going to be 50 degrees outside and sunny, or it's going to be.
It was very nice this year.
8 foot of snow, So, all right. Well, I'm done talking unless somebody else wants to take over and talk. So.
You're done talking for the show, anyways.
Yeah, I've reached my limit. So, Mr. Betcher, do you have anything else you'd like to mention?
List of cybersecurity hacker conferences in Helena, Montana.
Shut up.
There's actually a link. Wow.
Well, okay then.
Cool. That's kind of like past my bedtime.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
mine too.
Okay. Well, all right, then let's get the pleasantries out of the way. Miss Berlin, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss further the topics and things that we had talked about tonight?
At InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any place else other than that?
Everywhere I use that. So,
okay. All right, Snapchat.
No, my Snapchat's something really weird that I can't ever remember because I never use Snapchat. So
okay. All right, Mr. Betcher, how about you?
Just Twitter at BetcherPwned.
Okay.
You can also go to the website called log-md.com.
Yep. IMF Security as well. That's your bag.
Security. Yep.
Very nice. Okay. So the official BreakSec podcast can be found at BreakSec, BRAKESEC on Twitter. You can also follow me at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. Website is breakingsecurity.com, BRAKEING security.com. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. We're on the iTunes store. If you listen to us on iTunes, leave us some feedback. We appreciate that. I think we're like number 850 out of like top, 500 podcasts. So we'd love some feedback to move us up on the rankings there a little bit. We're in the Google Play Store, of course, like I said. TuneIn Radio app's really nice. I like that one. We're also on Slack. We mentioned that earlier, where we do our CTF club, and we're also doing our book club. We're not doing any kind of nepotism here. We just decided it was a really good book, but we're going to be doing the Defensive Security Handbook, written by.
I hear it's amazing.
That Lee Brotherston,
he's one awesome fella.
Yes, I have a picture of him in some long flannel underwear, holding some.
Isn't he dressed syrup. Like a moose?
No, he's got his toque on with the flaps over his ears. He's a sexy beast. That should be on the front cover, actually, of that book.
That would be amazing. Yeah. I should try and get that to happen.
Yep. So it was co-authored, of course, by Miss Berlin and Mr. Brotherston, who we will have on as a guest very soon. We're going to be doing that one. We're basically going to go through like we did with our last book. We're going to go chapter by chapter and go over various things like like Oprah, but not. This is
going to be one of Oprah's books.
Oh, really?
Bestseller. Yep.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I my goal is to sell 1 million of them. So
1 million pages, or actually 1 million books?
No, 1 million books.
Oh,
okay.
So okay.
Right.
I was going to say 1 million pages might be a little more possible. It's an O'Reilly book, so you can actually get it on pre-order right now on Safari.
You can get it on pre-order everywhere.
Yeah, but you can actually get like an early copy, so you can get like
you can get the e-copy, which right now is all up to date, other than painful formatting changes that we had to go through last week.
Okay. Yeah. We probably should have your publisher on to talk about how people publish books.
So. We should. She's amazing.
Yeah, I met her. She's a nice lady.
Yeah.
So, big plugs here. B-Sides London is going on. Call for papers started February 14th. if you want to go to London in, I don't want to even say what date it is. The CFP closes in March, so it's got to be sometime after that point. You can go to follow B-Sides London for more information. They put out a group of tickets earlier. They're already sold out, so you follow their Twitter, and they will let you know when more is going to be available. You can also go to securitybsides.org.uk for their website. Hack in the Box still going on. I want to say tickets are still available. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen that, so you might want to check out their website, conference.hitb.org/HITB SecConf 2017 AMS. Oh my God. Just check the show notes for the link. If tickets are still available, you can do a checkout. You get 10% off if you put in breaking security as checkout. We do appreciate Sebastian for hooking us up with that opportunity, and you can follow him at HITB SecConf as well. So Amanda's going to be at AIDE, which is going to be 6 and 7 April. There's still tickets available for that. They're $60. You can get tickets for that, and it's in West Virginia. So if you're on the East Coast, it shouldn't be completely awful to get to. So and Bill Gardner's a good guy, so you definitely want to check him out. And check out his stuff. So
I was just on his podcast too.
Really?
Yeah, the last 2 of them actually.
Well, pimp out the podcast, man.
Oh yeah, it's Reboot It.
Reboot It podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Well, I guess we'll put those links up when they're available too. So.
West Virginia.
Well, so what? She's moonlighting.
I did sleep on the couch with Adrian last time I went.
Oh.
Okay. It was a large couch. We slept on opposite ends.
Okay, that's cool. All right.
Just to clarify.
Very nice. Okay. Well, with that being said, that was it for.
Hey, people, shoot for the moon. If you get halfway, you've still gone 119,450 miles.
Well,
away from me.
If you get halfway, the gravity of the moon will take you the rest of the way. So there's that. So, all right. With that note, we're done for this week. This is Breaking Down Security. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Goodness. What was that, people?
It seemed like we ranted a lot on that one.
Oh my God. Rantapalooza. I don't think it was ranting. I actually liked talking about the technical interview thing. I thought that was good. I thought that needed to be talked about a little bit because I think there is a stigma there that oh my God, it's a whiteboard. So the one interview that I had that allowed me to Google during the little test thing that they gave me was really funny. Yeah. Because
the question that they asked me, or what was it? I don't know if it was a multiple choice question or whatever it was, but they had it wrong in the question.
Really? Did they like being told that they were wrong?
Though. Maybe it was on purpose.
It wasn't on purpose, but they thought it was impressive that I corrected them. I thought it was part of the thing. Yeah, it was one of the worst jobs I've ever had.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nice. I only stayed there for 4 or 5 months. If you get the
question wrong, then maybe that's a red flag.
Yeah, maybe that was an indicator.
Yeah, it had something to do with what FSMA roles like 2008 R2 or 2012 domain controllers are supposed to have. They did a really bad job with it.
Sounds like a crappy compliance job.
Nice.
No, I actually wasn't allowed to do anything. It was a government job.
Oh, okay.
I still think people that are complaining about technical interview just don't know what they're doing, and they're just looking for excuses. They're trying to fool themselves into thinking they're better than how they actually performed at the interview. It takes work. And yeah, you may, Amanda, you may say that you don't study for interviews or you don't prepare for them, but that's just the way you are. You're probably skilled enough to handle them, or you've been through enough to handle them.
I figure there's nothing that I can prepare for, at least in the ones that I've gone to, other than like looking up information on the company and what they run and what they do and everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I can teach myself prior to going there that I know that they're going to ask me.
Yeah. And
but you can prepare for certain questions, not necessarily technical
Yeah,
questions, but
right.
you
The
can prepare for
non-technical
questions
questions,
like, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Well, if you only talk for 15, 30 seconds about tell me about yourself, obviously you haven't prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you go on for 15 minutes talking about yourself, then I'm like, okay, well,
right. Right. The one that I have always prepared for, and I just recently got a good solid answer to keep, is what's your biggest weakness?
Oh yeah.
Do
you give a fake strength, like, oh, I just work 15-hour days?
All right, no. Well, no, because I think my biggest weakness is I can't speak in absolutes. Like, yeah.
That's like, that's the compliance dude in you, though. It's like, well, there's always shades
it was like the customer service help desk person. Like, this should work. Because you never know.
We'll just throw it against the wall,
things
see if
around
it sticks.
Right. Yeah. I always say should or maybe or whatever, and I get yelled at that all the time.
Well, Mr. Betcher, what's your weakness?
I'm sure I have many.
Do you want us to start?
Yeah, go
keep a tally. Yeah. That's probably his weakness. He has too many weaknesses. Mine is I'm procrastinating a little too much on things that I don't like to do.
Yeah.
I will put that shit off until the very last minute. And sometimes you can tell. I mean, you can tell the work looks like it's been thrown together. And you know what I do? I tell employers that I'm like, yeah, if there's just something I don't want to do, it's like pulling teeth to get me to do it, and I will procrastinate the fuck out of that. It's probably why I don't have a lot of job offers coming, because I've given up trying to like lie. I took all the embellishments off my resume and shit. I'm like, look, you're gonna hire me, you're not gonna hire me. Fuck it, I don't care. I helped with something, which means I could probably do it myself. I used to be like, oh yeah, I headed this up when I actually was probably the assistant to the assistant. I can do it, but I just, Yeah, I've taken all those embellishments off because I'm like, fuck it, I'm done. Just, you're going to give me the job or you're not. And the fact that you looked at my resume means something. So I would actually like to have my next job not be where I got to interview. I would like for somebody to go,
hey, that's what I want. We want to hire you.
God, that would be awesome. Actually, this last job I had was like that. It was like they reached out of nowhere. So
I just got that the other day. So I hope that turns into something.
Yeah.
I would say I get interrupted. It's too easy to interrupt me as I'm working, because I'll be working on something and then something will come up and I'll be working on that, and then something else. I'll be doing this, and I thought about this, and I'll do this. It's not a circle. It's more like a spiral, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and then I'll eventually come back around. What the hell was I doing 15 things ago?
Right? I've started keeping tabs open in Sublime Text of different things that I've been working on, and then I'll see one open. I'm like, I should have put more context here. What I was doing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I gotta go. So y'all have a good night.
Yep. I'll talk to you guys later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Later. Bye.
Bye.
Don't y'all feel privileged hanging out with me in Hangouts?
Totally.
Oh, really? Really? It's like that, is it? Boy, you go to a couple of B-side, you go to a couple arsenals, and you're